Read all the stories about BYU sports no one else has heard. Go to KSLSports.com for exclusive columns by BYU insider Mitch Harper. That's KSLSports.com.
All right, welcome back. It is First and 12 right here with you on a Sunday. Alex Kirry, Mitch Harper. If you download the podcast, you can find it wherever podcasts are found on any of the major podcast platforms. Wherever you find podcasts that you download yourself, you can find First and 12. Alex Kirry, Mitch Harper, as I said, and we're heard on the KSL Sports Zone and KSL News Radio every Sunday morning and afternoon on KSL News Radio. And then, of course, you can dip in onto Unrivaled during the week, anything on the KSL Sports Zone, and then read Mitch Harper. Oh, tomorrow, are you guys going to have a normal Cougar Nation on the air? Because, I mean, what are people going to do? Call in and bicker about a game that wasn't? Or are they going to call in and complain about Texas and Oklahoma? What's going to happen tomorrow on Cougar Nation, Mitch?
We'll have a Big 12 spin, I think, on Cougar Nation, but we'll also get people's thoughts, maybe the best player through the first 5 games, some takeaways. What's maybe the game you're excited for the most? Because, hey, with this Red River game, maybe the game that people are excited for more is now Oklahoma.
Yeah. It's exciting. So let's break down our featured Big 12 game of the week, brought to you by Macy's Grocery Store. Happy shopping. Macy's Groceries brings you the freshest fruits and vegetables from local farms and your favorite local brands. It's Macy's, proud sponsors of First and 12. Mitch, let's start off with the Red River Rivalry. Everybody buckling down, grabbing a fried stick of butter at the Texas State Fair in the shadow of Big Tex there. And it is a unique situation still, because this is the old school Cotton Bowl.
Yeah.
And I'd love to see that burnt orange and that, I don't know what they call it, gross maroon or dirty crimson. I'm not sure what they go. Dr. Pepper. I don't know what the color is they call Oklahoma, but to see that split right down the middle of the 50-yard line, it's always a really, really great tradition. That is something that we will absolutely miss from these two teams being in the Big 12, but it delivered. It wasn't the 49-0 blowout that we've seen in the past, and thank heavens for that. It was a back and forth, and I think we're going to see these teams maybe face off again.
It was classic, Texas, Oklahoma. It kind of reminded me of, when I think of this game, I think of Ricky Williams flying in with Teddy Lehman and against Chris Sims, like moments like that. Vince Young, Colt McCoy in these games. I mean, this is a big-time game. And, it's a little bit sad to see that it's no longer going to have the XII, the Roman numeral Big 12, on the field anymore at the Cotton Bowl. And it's clear, it's all about the SEC. Greg Sankey was there. And, it's going to be a big deal for the SEC going forward. But I got to say, the one thing I feel like with these two programs in the Big 12 is that they've always been, kind of bigger than life. And it'll be interesting to see how they are viewed down the road. I know there's still a long way away till next year, but how they're viewed in the SEC power structure, because they're going to go in the deep end of college football with how just the resources that are committed in the SEC. And these brands are top notch. I get it. But Texas's resources are endless, but it feels like they could have, maybe they become one of them becomes a Nebraska and they leave this league, and then they're just kind of a 7-5, 8-4 team. It'll be interesting to see what they become in the future. But for one last go in the Big 12, it was a lot of fun. And I do think that these two are clearly on a collision course to being back in Arlington for the Big 12 championship game. I mean, because from what I'm seeing from the rest of the league right now, I just don't see anyone else that could potentially knock off these guys, one or two more times. I just think they're destined to be on a collision course for December.
So I was looking at Quinn Ewers' numbers from yesterday's Red River game, and 31 for 37 for 346 yards. And you go, done, Texas won the game.
Oh, yeah.
Interception, 2 picks. 2 picks and 1 touchdown, sorry. It just falls off. A 31 for 37 day where you throw for almost 350 and you only throw a touchdown and then you throw 2 interceptions. And so out of his 2 of his 6 incompletions out of the almost 40 passes that he threw, 2 of them are interceptions. And Dylan Gabriel, on the other hand, did not make a mistake on his throwing. Goes for 285 and a touchdown through the air. Both of these teams went heavy on the ground, both running for over 40 times on the day. But it was Oklahoma's rushing attack. Dylan Gabriel himself with 113 yards on the ground. Jonathan Brooks for Texas, who is looking like a really, really competent replacement for for Bijan Robinson. I mean, he's 22 carries for 130 yards, but they couldn't get it done. And Oklahoma looks really scary. That attack is still very, very balanced. 200 yards on the ground, 285 through the air. I'm not sure which team to be more afraid of if you're a BYU fan.
I agree, and I thought it was noteworthy, too, out of the gates. I thought Oklahoma silenced any critics about them being a soft team, like they were last year.
A fake undefeated team. Yeah.
Right, because that opening drive, they get a pick on Ewers. And, I mean, I just remember even that opening kick, they swarmed to the kick returner and had some hard hits. I mean, they just kind of set a tone from the get-go. They were ready. And, Texas has always seemed to be that team in this rivalry game where they kind of fold. Like I mentioned that Chris Sims game years and years ago, about 20 years ago. They just always seem to be the team where you feel like, okay, this is their season. They're going to roll through, go undefeated. But then Red River comes, and Oklahoma's the team that seems to always tends to emerge. And then when you add the revenge element here, like they had this year, it worked quite well for them. But, yeah, I mean, Oklahoma, their defense, too, was opportunistic. I mean, you noted Quinn Ewers. He had a stretch there where he completed 23 of 24 passes. One of those 6 incompletions was the final pass, at, the Hail Mary to try to, win it. But I mean, he had a great game, but Oklahoma's defense did enough. And they still have some moments where they're bend but don't break. But they've got enough star power, especially with Danny Stutzman in the middle. I think about 8 tackles. They were playing with a lot of violence, and that's something you just didn't see at all last year from Oklahoma.
Okay, be honest. Would you prefer to not see these teams playing one another in the Big 12 championship game? Is it some version? Are they both going to be playing one another? Is one of these teams going to be there and not the other come December at the Big 12 championship game there at Jerry World?
Well, if you ask me who I prefer, yes, I would prefer to not see both of them because I would love the element. Why have another SEC ceremony
it's a swan
in
song.
Arlington?
It's a swan song for the 2 best teams in the conference, at least for now.
I would love to see, maybe a Texas-Kansas rematch with Jalen Daniels potentially. I know does that just sound weird to you? Kansas in a Big 12 title game? Maybe though. It's possible. We'll have our Big 12 power rankings coming up on the other side, and we'll see where the Jayhawks land. But it's just hard to picture through 6 weeks, Alex, anyone else right now. Like it just seems like it's such a sizable gap, and tough time for the league because the last 3 years, this conference has had, TCU, Oklahoma State, Baylor emerge, and they've been real threats where it doesn't seem like there's that real threat. Like every game the rest of the way for both of these teams, Oklahoma and Texas, they're probably going to be double-digit favorites at least, maybe even 3 touchdown favorites in most of these games. So it's going to take a remarkable upset for them to be knocked off by some of the other teams in the Big 12.
I think if BYU is going to get to 8 wins, you'll likely have to steal one from one of these teams.
Yeah.
Which one would you prefer? Down in Texas, Oklahoma at home in November?
I'd say Oklahoma because it's senior day. It's in Provo. It's the only time you're ever going to get Boomer Sooner into Provo.
Mm-hmm.
I think that would be the spot. You got to think, too, Alex, that the Big 12 and the TV networks are going to put that as a late-night game, right? Because the following week, Oklahoma has an early Black Friday game against TCU, I think at 11 a.m. I bet that's going to be a late-night game. Cold weather. Oklahoma, sometimes gets a little bit colder in November, but not to the levels that Provo can get cold on a late Saturday night in November. So I think that's the game. If Cougar fans wanted to pick between the two, I think Oklahoma's the one, especially now with what happened yesterday at Red River.
If you're going to go 4-3 the rest of the way, which is really what you got to do to be able to get to that 8-4 mark, if you're going to steal, you got to win 3 games that you have to win, and then you have to steal one that you're not supposed to win. And that may be that Oklahoma game at the very, very end of the season where you're going, all right, Oklahoma the very next week has got to play one, but, in a short week. So maybe BYU can kind of trap them there in Provo. That might be the one to get. All right. But I wouldn't kick either of those wins out of bed. Come on, Mitch.
No.
Any one of those. All right.
You take any one of those.
Come on.
Sight unseen.
Let's take the break here. We'll come back. Hour number 2. We've got tons to roll through. Our power rankings are finally here, where we're going to put everybody this week. A lot of shuffling. You got to figure it out. We will come back. So many different names. Where's BYU on this list? They're creeping on up, aren't they? Stay with us right here. It is 97.5 the KSL Sports Zone and KSL News Radio. It is 1st and 12. Stay with us.